Happy Monday and good noon. I'm Michelle Gooch with Life by Design. I like to partner with people who are moving towards transition, in transition, wish to create transition. If that describes you, you can find me at www.lifebydesign.guru, lifebydesign.guru. And if we decide to partner in coaching together, we can do it online so we can keep up with our social distancing. So today I want us to talk about that. I want us to talk about the fact that we're in the middle of this global pandemic and what huge opportunities we have for our own personal growth in the middle of this crisis. If you're like me, when you're anxious or stressed, you begin to think about that anxiety, that stress all the time. So you have a bill coming up you don't know how to pay, you're focused on that. You're chewing on that. You could be doing other things. You could be in other places. You could be around people and still be thinking about that. If you have a kid in trouble, your focus is on that. And what happens is you don't have the capacity, at least I don't have the capacity sometimes in that anxiety to think of the other person. So I am stewing on, figuring out, and anxious about, stressed over my child or my bills or whatever it is. And I'm pretty unaware of what's happening with you, even though I might be right there in the room with you. I'm pretty unaware. The problem is, with a global pandemic, our choices affect everyone around us. Our choices are we can no longer just think about our own individual risk, our own individual health. Our choices are impacting the people around us. So when we're anxious, like I just described, our anxiety, and we start thinking only about ourselves, then we make decisions that are unwise for everyone else. So when I said we have huge opportunities in the middle of this for our own personal growth, one of the opportunities is to embrace this interconnectedness that we have, that we begin to shift our thought about making decisions, assessing risks, thinking about health, whatever it is. And we began to think more globally, more about the person next to us. Even though anxiety and stress tends to make us think only about ourselves, our challenge now, our huge opportunity for growth is to think about the other person. That's one way we can grow in the middle of this global pandemic. Another way, and there are several, but another way I want to mention to you is while we're in the middle of this social distancing, while we're working hard to slow down the spread and keep from overwhelming our healthcare systems, we have had this invitation to go nowhere. This invitation is to stillness. Now that is really different from what we know in our world. We are a fast-paced place. We believe that the faster you go, the more progress you make. The more you can hurry, the better off you are. If you can get there sooner, then do it. And so we don't put a lot of value on stillness, but we have now this incredible invitation to be still. So a huge opportunity in our growth would be to practice stillness. What would it look like every day that we are in this social distancing, that you sit yourself down in a chair by yourself and get still completely, physically, and then begin to see what you can still in your mind. See, we run and run and run. We're in two places at one time, or at least we think we can be. We cut out margins in our life. We reduce our sleep just to keep up. And what we may discover when we get still is that we do that on purpose because we don't want to face whatever's happening in our mind. When we get still and discover how our mind is racing, then we have the opportunity to start slowing that down too. So huge opportunities. First one I mentioned was think more globally. This opportunity that even in the middle of anxiety, fear, and stress, we don't just clam up and think only of ourselves, but we think more globally. And then the next opportunity for growth is to begin to embrace this stillness. How do I practice stillness on a daily basis and gain from being still? And then finally, the last thing I want us just to touch base on today is what are we fueling if you're like the rest of the world, you're probably fueling your fear, and you're doing that by scrolling, 4 hours a day of scrolling, or 10 hours a day of the news in the background playing. And that is always, almost always in these crisis situations, fueling our fear. My guess is you don't want to fuel your fear. So what do you want to fuel? Peace, contentment, joy. What is it that you want to fuel? And if that's really what you want to fuel, then what would you be doing that would fuel that? So I'm not saying don't scroll and don't listen to the news. I'm just saying put some limits on that, because it's fueling your fear, and start finding the things that fuel what you really want, whatever that is. I mentioned peace, contentment, and joy, but whatever it is you want to fuel, what would fuel that, and begin to do that. We have a beautiful opportunity here to really dig deep and grow ourselves in the middle of this. Rather than choose fear, panic, and anxiety, let's choose growth and be intentional in the ways we do that. If you're interested in exploring this a little more, thinking through a new way to respond rather than fear, anxiety, and stress, even while you're socially distancing and keeping up with the restrictions that keep us from spreading this, join me Thursday. I'm going to host a webinar Thursday at noon, so we can explore this a little more and think about new ways, new tactics, new strategies to overcome fear, anxiety, and stress in the middle of a global pandemic. I'll try to remember to put the link here in the comments below. See you next Monday.